We are obviously the Troy Chamber of Commerce, and we are very grateful to always have wonderful and dynamic speakers join us to help educate and grow us, and we've got a fantastic one today. Manny, is it okay if I call you Manny? I'm so used to calling you Manny, okay? Yep. So Manny Amezcua, I've got to know over the past few months, and he has been so dynamic. I was chuckling and talking a little earlier. There's something about him that is just so much passion, and he exudes joy. But not only that, he has such a transformational conversation of how he addresses vision and leadership. And I just find him completely inspiring. So I'm very grateful to have him today. So I just wanted to say welcome, thank you. I'd also like to go through a few of the disclaimers. I'd love to thank our Platinum members, because without them, we wouldn't be able to have great educational components like this that we have today. So please go to troychamber.com to view our Platinum members and say thank you to them when you can. But at this time, I'd like to introduce Manny. So Manny is an entrepreneur, philanthropist, public speaker, and an executive in the financial planning, wealth management, and insurance industry. He currently serves as firm president, CEO for MassMutual Great Lakes. MassMutual Great Lakes is one of the leading brands to help create financial security, stability, and success on behalf of individuals, business owners, and institutions it serves in the United States. Manny is also the founder of the Podium Group and the Collective Financial Group, both growing national practices. The Podium Group has concentrated focus on serving professional athletes, entertainers, business owners, and executives, while the Collective Financial Group is a community of highly empowered and accomplished women who have developed a strategy and platform to engage, mentor, and empower women in our industry and those that they serve as clients. Prior to March 2017, Manny served as a managing partner for MassMutual Chicago. Within Manuel's 2-year span serving and leading MassMutual Great Lakes, the firm has been recognized on Metro Detroit's Best and Brightest Companies to Work For list in 2018 and 19, as well as Crane's Detroit Business Cool Places to Work in Michigan list. In addition to this, Manny is coming to us live from Florida, so he might be the farthest speaker we've had in a while. So I'm grateful. I know it's a work trip, but we're grateful that you were able to fit us in for this. And at the forefront of Manny's personal life is his wonderful wife, who I was so lucky to meet about a month or two ago, Samantha, and their 2 children, Ava and Atlas. And they share a strong community involvement and maintain a commitment to numerous charities. And I'm just really grateful to have you. So with no further ado, I'd love to introduce Manny.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tara, and thanks to you and your team, Sheila, and obviously all of our Michigan business owners that took time out of their busy schedule to be together today and share some thoughts and some ideas on how we can all get better at what we're doing in serving and leading teams. As you mentioned, this is my 19th year in our industry. I started a year and a half out of college, and I'll tell you, I think this industry for me was the perfect calling. And although I tripped into it by accident, as most of you know, you've probably either worked with an advisor at some point or dealt with somebody around financial matters that are important to you personally or professionally. But there's a lot of servant leadership that it takes to be successful in any type of career in sales. And so I've learned a great deal over these first 19 years, kind of finding my way and navigating my way through understanding how to be a good teammate, a good team captain, a good steward to our firm. So, the title of our conversation today is serving and leading teams with vision, transparency, and probably one of my favorite things, which is a written plan. Chad and others on this call, our Chief Sales Officer, Gina Coleman, who joined us in January, she'll attest. I often say, hey, if your plan's not written, it's merely an intention. If your plan's not written, it's merely an intention. And while intentions are great, there's just a lower likelihood and or predictability that what you say you will do and you will accomplish, that you'll be able to do so. So I'm a really big fan of the written plan. A dear friend and mentor of mine says that the reason teams exist is because there's an opportunity or a challenge so big that we could not do it alone. And that's really the foundation to everything that we do within our firm and the mindset that I bring as a teammate to the team that I'm a part of. Not just at MassMutual Great Lakes, not at the Podium Group, but in my life and in my family life, etc. I firmly believe that when Lee Rubin, my dear friend and mentor, Lee Rubin, said that the reason the team exists is because there's an opportunity or a challenge so big that we could not do it alone. I just so firmly believe and align with that. And I can't tell you how many times, as many of you probably know and have experienced throughout your lives, how many times it was just a little bit easier and the achievement was a little bit more rewarding and the moment was a little bit sweeter because you did it with a great teammate. And so that's a big part of how we try to approach business at our firm and in the different things that we're involved with. So today we're going to talk about having great vision. We're going to talk a little bit about how to attack that vision with transparency as a part of a team. And I'm going to share a few ideas on how to create a really simple yet clear and effective written plan for whatever it is that you're attacking in your personal life or professional life in business. Okay, so let's start with vision. A quick disclaimer. The majority of what you'll hear me say is some type of repurposing of something that someone taught me along the way. Even my initial brief encounter with Rick Comiskey at, I think it was a DEC event when I first landed from Chicago into Michigan. I mean, I learned a little bit from Rick. I learned a little bit about the furniture business. I learned a little bit about who the players were. I learned a little bit about the specialization that he had. And I quickly learned that we had some of the same mutual relationships, even though I was brand new to Michigan, but I was being introduced to the same people that he had served as a client. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for us when we're thinking about these building a vision for our organization. There's a huge opportunity to find a way to make everyone a part of that vision. And let me explain a little bit what I mean by that. So our firm's vision for our organization is to become the premier brand in the financial success and well-being category for individuals and for businesses. Well, when we stated that vision, that's pretty simple, right? Like we aspire to be the best. That's what we're aspiring to do. But that really doesn't mean a whole lot to our organization unless it aligns and it allows everyone else within the organization to achieve their personal vision for their life. And so what I mean by that is when we're bringing in individuals or organization, we're introducing our vision for our business front and center. And we're saying, this is what we're about. And then what we do more than anything is we peel back and we talk about the core values that it will take for us to attack that vision. By sharing the core values, which for us are transparency, having an authentic optimism towards life and abundance, being reliable, resourceful, and a commitment to mastering and serving others, what we quickly establish is that the core values we have for the organization are really great core values for our personal life. And so we begin to ask the people who are interviewing at our firm or want to be a part of our organization, how those core values might be able to help them, not just professionally, but also personally in their life and getting to know what really makes them tick. Many of you are probably aware of Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek is one of the greatest thought leaders in servant leadership today. And we talk about his concept and visualization of the golden circle all of the time. And most of you probably know what that is, but to just repeat it, the golden circle encourages us to explain to people why we aspire to do something before we talk about how we do it and what we do. In sales early on in my career, I was the worst at immediately saying, oh, I'm a financial advisor. Well, I'm not sure that Barry, Jeff, or Rick, or any of you on this call are going to get really excited if you meet me somewhere and the first thing I say is that I'm a financial advisor. I've realized that in Michigan, like in Chicago, there's hundreds of thousands of us, right? But I think that if I would take a page out of Simon Sinek's book and talk about why, when I tell people that I'm the third of four boys from two immigrants from the country of Mexico, when I tell them that I grew up with an enormous abundance of faith, of gratitude for living in this free country, of loyalty to my family, and being a ferocious competitor, but I grew up with no money. I grew up with very limited financial resources. And when I share that, and I share that this is why I've gotten into this business, because I realized that a life without money is a life with very few choices. And the power of choice is the one thing that has the greatest impact on our quality of life. So I found over time, and as I've matured in the business, that when I explain to people that this is why I'm so relentless and unflinchingly in love and passionate, obsessed about the business I'm in, when I explain that, a lot of people then say, oh gosh, you know what? I don't even know why my advisor's in the business. I don't know why. I don't know where he's from. I bought from him because, my neighbor bought from him, or my coworker bought from him, or he's a great nester in the company I work at, and he just knocks on the doors down the hallway, and that's why I'm there. I think that, again, when we go back to what Simon Sinek teaches us, which is, one, we should over-communicate our vision for our organization, for ourselves. But two, we should lead with that and why that is, why that's important to us. We find that people really tend to come together a lot quicker because there's a more intimate level of connection at that point. We don't have to align perfectly on what we want in our personal lives to still have an enormous amount of respect, empathy, and emotional commitment to a teammate. And I think just understanding where their feet are at any given point in their life when they work with us, I think that's really the most critical thing that we can take time to understand. And so for us, again, taking a step back, and I'm sorry, this room's a little warm, but taking a step back, if we share our vision proudly for our organization, and we make it very, very clear how our personal vision for our lives aligns with that, and invite others to do the same, especially around very simple and clear core values. It creates one common language and one common roadmap on helping the organization and the individuals within that organization accomplish pretty special things. And while that's not perfect, that's been my experience, and that's how we work really hard to serve our current team within the firm. We definitely believe that sharing the vision, working hard to attack that vision, also requires for us to be really committed to servant leadership. And so one thing that I'll mention is that when we think about servant leadership for us within the organization, there's one simple rule that we really try to execute on. And it's how do we find a way to give first or say yes when someone has a need? I think too many times as organizations get big, they start to implement rules. And with more rules, it creates more management and supervision. My mentor early on in the business said managers and supervisors exist because the vision's not clear, the roadmap to get there is not clear and or consistently reinforced, and you're not doing a good job of holding your teammates capable. Not accountable, but capable. And so I do find that as organizations get bigger, like ours has, we're having more conversations on setting up more rules and setting up more boundaries and guidelines and systems. And in doing that, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that what makes an organization great, the greatest asset of any organization, is its people. So again, as we're having clarity around the vision and we're attacking the vision, we can get lost sometimes in setting up too many rules, and we forget that the power and how much significance exists in when somebody requests something that's important to them or asks for something, is trying to actually take a moment to think about that, process that, and say, can I say yes here? Like how can I meet this person where their feet are and find a way to say yes to what they're looking for? And so for me, the concept is giving first And we talk about this a lot now when we do conversations within different organizations or share what we think is working within our culture. It's how different would the world be? How different would the world be if every time two strangers met for the first time, their intention was to say, you know, I want to see if I could add a little value to this person. I'd like to see if there's a way I could add a little value. And I say that to people. So I think sometimes people get a little caught off guard when they're sitting down with me for the first time, because I'm saying, look, if I can't provide you any value, we're not going to get together again. I'm going to be that guy that you avoid every time you see him at an event, or you're no longer going to respond to the emails. So to me, if I can just have this commitment of living my life by giving first, I know for a fact that as long as I live long enough, it will come back to me. And maybe it doesn't come back to me on earth. Maybe it comes back to me afterwards. But it's going to come back, because that's the law of the world. And so when we can do that, and we can be attacking a really clear and simple vision that we over communicate to our folks with core values that guide us as we attack that as a team, but thinking about, man, you know, I want to be known as somebody who finds a way to say yes to my people. I want to be someone that I find a way to say yes to my team. Hey, maybe we can't do it that way, but here's another way we can make it work so that you can get what you want, because I want to be able to add value to your life beyond just within these walls and beyond what's written in your role description. So those are a couple of things that I would share about vision. And let me just make sure that I didn't miss something else. I think we're good. Let's go to transparency for a couple minutes. So we led with the first core value of transparency within the firm when I moved here from Chicago in 2017 for one specific reason. I cannot tell you, actually, I'm retired right now. I'm 42, and I look forward to retirement. I'm not going to actually retire, but everybody calls it retirement. I'm gonna exit gracefully from this industry at a young age, hopefully. And I'll tell you, I can't tell you how many times that I've heard people say, to be honest. And listen, Gina Coleman will tell everybody on this call, I am the first person to say, I hope you are, because otherwise we're wasting each other's time. And then I shut up, because I don't understand why people say that. Another thing, if I had $1 for every time somebody said, let me be brutally honest, those people are more about the brutality than the honesty. Now, maybe not every time, but for enough that I predictably know I don't want to hear what's coming out next. And so I think, you know, we led with the core value of transparency within our organization, because we said, look, our greatest asset is our people. So if this is not our first core value, how are we going to empower them to think and feel and communicate those? How do we empower them to do that without leading with a core value like that? In our bookends, our first core value is transparency. Our last core value is commitment to mastery and serving other humans. So our bookends, you know, when you talk about authentic optimism and reliability and resourcefulness, it's sandwiched between two of the greatest pieces of bread that you could ever have in a sandwich, right? Transparency and commitment to mastery and serving others and serving humans. And it's really because we want our people to say exactly what's coming out of here, out of their heart in any given moment. Because when you do that, we just have a much deeper understanding. There's a great philosopher, and you know, I've heard more things than I can remember in my life, but there's this great philosopher that once said, you know, the greatest thing a human seeks is to be understood. And I just butchered what he said, but it's Sigmund something. And that's a real thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I come home to my beloved wife, Samantha, and I say, hey, where am I at on a 0 to 10 point scale? If she gives me a 7 or better, I'm celebrating. I'm celebrating a 7.0 or better score on that, right? And I found that I'm usually at a 7 or better if I ask a lot of questions to seek to understand what's going on in her life, instead of thinking that MassMutual Great Lakes and my love for the great city of Detroit is the only thing that matters, you know? And so I think, again, you know, when we begin to talk about transparency as an organization, and you really think about the servant leadership it takes to serve and lead our teams. And again, all these things I say because they've been someone has shared them with me and they've really resonated for me, and I'm repurposing the teachings of great mentors in my life, right? It's nothing unique to me. But when we do that, boy, in an environment of transparency, we get to what my dear friend and mentor Lee Rubin also says, is that trust is critical. I mean, trust is everything. I'll tell you what, I don't know how many of you are feeling this way, but in this new work from home environment, I've told my team, we have a painfully, and Rick knows this, we painfully have a very expensive piece at the top of the town center in Southfield that I inherited when we moved here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this new reality, as many of you may know, it's taught me that, wow, our vision is so clear. Our core values are so absorbed and obsessed by our people that we are more productive not coming into the firm. That's a scary thing. That's a scary thing. What does that say about micromanagers? What does that say about supervisors? What does that say about whether or not we've been in environments where we've trusted or not? This new reality has really challenged us to operate in a much more transparent and trusting fashion within our organizations and in our relationships with our clients. But I think the most powerful thing it's given us, really, if I look at it from my interactions serving our team or being a teammate, is that we just get to the punchline a lot quicker. I always tell my team, I'm like, look, if I may be really excited, but if you're not about it, you got to tell me, because I'm not a mind reader. I'm still a 0.0 score on mind reading. So this new environment where we're working remotely with everybody and we can't come by and chit chat and see how, service was on Sunday and how your children are doing, and talking about the fact that I'm the only one that watches Chicago sports teams here in the city of Detroit and things like that, that banter we'd have around the office. What's happened is that we just have to be a lot more trusting and transparent with each other and get straight to the point. And I think transparency really does empower us to be able to do that in a really special way. And so many times what we're doing as an organization is, in our conversations with our teammates, we repeat our core values. So the person knows that I'm actually exercising a value that we've agreed we unite around. So, hey, I'd like to exercise my ability to be really transparent in this conversation. I'm excited that you're excited, but I'm not necessarily excited about the idea. And so we've got to be able to have those tough conversations sometimes if we don't agree that something could be extremely helpful to help the organization move forward. Transparency. Another reason that we think transparency is so critical to the organization and to being a teammate is that it gives us permission to disagree with a lot more grace, finesse, and etiquette. And I think my impression has been is that when we're having tough conversations with each other, if we again are repeating the fact that our intention is to be transparent for the greater good of the organization, I find that the words that come after that, as long as I maintain my level of professionalism in delivering them, I just find that people tend to be more willing to listen and to understand why it is that we're not aligned on the opportunity or the decision or the outcome. And I think that that's so much more powerful than the unfortunate reality of us all living in a world where many people say, let me be honest, or to be brutally honest, which I think really just sets up the conversation for a very negative spin. And many times those things can spin out of control. And as we all know, it's not really what we say or how we say it, but it's really how that person internalizes it. And I can't tell you the millions of times in my life that growing up as one of four boys, we obviously grew up communicating a very sort of direct and somewhat abrasive way at times. How many times I've really regretted the way I've let someone feeling. Too many times to count. And so like many others, it's a work in progress, but we set up our core values, and the first one of transparency, to really help guide us, and hopefully we'll be a lot more cognizant of it over time. A dear friend of mine also says that, and I don't want to butcher what he says, transparency is critical in understanding team members and how to best work together to support them in achieving the vision. So, early on, we talked about the fact that it's really helpful when we not only over communicate the vision of the organization, but when we understand the individual's vision for their life and how maybe being on the team and on the bus with us as we attack the organizational vision, we can bring them along in their personal life. I can't tell you how many times when I've been able to stop talking about business and start talking about what's really going on with an individual, that we come back 3 times stronger from that discussion. And look, there's so many successful and experienced people on this call, and while I've not met a lot of you, I recognize the names, and so I'm sure you've had that experience too. That some of our most like earth-shattering, like ceiling-breaking moments with our teams and our teammates, and when we've taken the time to really understand them on a personal level. So I think Ben Newman really hit it out of the park when he said that, and he's somebody who's a very successful person who coaches high-performance teams and athletes in the NFL and in other leagues, so he might be somebody worth looking at. Let me pivot to the last topic of the written plan. I mentioned very early on, I just don't believe that if your plan is not written, if the individual's plan is not written, the organization, the leadership, and the individuals, if everyone's plan is not written, it's not a real plan. It's not. It's just an intention. And so at our organization, we attack every 12 weeks, like 1 year. So every week represents a month, and every day represents a week. And we have every critical metric broken down to daily targets. So one of the things that we try to focus on in our organization, because we know that focus and urgency are the 2 reasons. Lack of focus and lack of urgency are the 2 reasons why people don't accomplish 12-month objectives. We've taken it into our hands to say, hey, every 12 weeks is a year now. And there's a great book by my friend Brian Moran, The 12-Week Year. It's one of the best execution books I've ever read in my life. I've been friends with Brian Moran for 15 years. He's from Michigan, just north of Lansing. And he's one of the top subject matter experts in the game of execution. And I've been a follower and a believer of the 12-week year for almost 15 years now. And I found that people say, how have you, even though you have limited talents, limited gifts, you come up against the same issues that we all face in your industry and in sales, how is it that you've been able to grow every year? And I really bring it down to the vision, strong core values like transparency, but then ultimately this written plan and the fact that we attack 12 weeks at a time like it's a full year. So every 12 weeks has metrics, every week within the 12 weeks has metrics, and every day within every week has metrics. And so we call them our daily disciplines. These are the 3 daily disciplines that you have. And we go to the point where we say, look, within your written plan, you have to clearly and simply define what winning looks like. So at the end of 12 weeks, at the end of 1 week, at the end of 1 day, what does winning look like? In the book by Brian Moran, Diana, is a 12-week year. So what does winning look like? And we've got to define that, right? Because people need simple and clear instruction on what it is that they're getting after. When you create a simple and clear objective, now we've got to create role clarity. So one of my favorite things is, who owns that? Like, who owns that? Do I own that? Yesterday, I got an email from my head of financial planning who was upset that his training slots keep getting taken over by these great outside speakers that we're bringing into the firm on Thursdays. And I just reminded him very politely in my response, hey, thank you for bringing this to me. As you know, I don't own the schedule. I'm really sorry that's happening. Someone's going to correct that immediately. But it's, clarity. If we're going to do a written plan with clearly defined metrics and goals, we also need role clarity on who owns that. And by saying who owns that, it allows us to just live in transparency that, hey, no, this one is me, or no, this one is not me, this one's you. Okay. And by putting that in the written plan, I think that could be really powerful. Let me add two more things. Systems for success. We talked about daily disciplines and really breaking everything down to, hey, what are the 2 or 3 daily disciplines that I need to attack every day? I like to encourage our team to say, look, 80% of your time should be obsessed in those. But I still want you to have 20% of the time to be creative. What I'm saying to my team and our team is that I don't have all the answers. So I want you to know, for us to attack our vision and accomplish these very specific metrics, if you put 80% of your time into what you own, in the role clarity, in the targets, in the measurements, we're going to be successful. But if you give us that other 20% where people kind of slough off, they get lazy, they're watching social media while they're supposed to be working, right? If you give me that extra 20% in creativity around what you own and how we could be doing it better, or in something you don't even own, but you've got a teammate that you love and care about that's going through something tough at work and you're going to chip in to help them, you give me that other 20% of time in creativity, we're going to win even more. So if you just give me 80% of your time at what you own and obsess about and you attack that, we're going to win. It's going to be great because it's crazy. It doesn't take 100% to win. It doesn't. It takes less than that because most people are lazy. Most people won't outwork other people. They're waiting. They're just waiting for the hand. So because we know that 80% will help us win, but if we give you the other 20% to be creative, I think we can win even more. And you'd be surprised at who solves what. The young man that helped set this up, Chad Miles, Tara and Sheila know him. I met him through Facebook. I never even had Facebook until I moved to Michigan. My wife said, nobody knows who you are. Nobody cares that you're from Chicago. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that you're 16 years into this business. You're the new guy in town. You need a Facebook so people know you have a family and you have a life outside of a blue suit and a white shirt. Great. So I get a Facebook account. I see he posts something and I reach out to him. I'm like, hey, I'd like to meet you. We meet. I hired him on the spot. Chad Miles has done 100 things that I never hired him to do. The reason Chad Miles has done 100 things that I never hired him to do is because I hired well and I give him time to be creative. Chad Miles is going to be one of the most successful people at anything he chooses to do in his life. And you heard me say it first. So if no one else in the world has said it, I said it. This young man in his mid-20s has done more for our organization to help us really dominate the market. If I give you the metrics that we've grown by in the last 3 years, not because of me, it's because of our people. But if I give you the metrics, I think you'd be surprised. And it would be amazing to see how many of those he's really helped influence and drive. And I'll tell you that point of creativity, it allows your team to really tap in, dig deep, and do things they wouldn't otherwise do. So we over communicate that, hey, we want people to do that. Okay. So last thing I'll say on the written plan is a lot of times you'll get people who won't do it, not because they don't want to do it or don't know how to do it, but they're afraid of something. We call that self-defeating thinking. It's really important. These are the 3 greatest mentoring and coaching questions I ask, and I ask them all the time. Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? Yes? Okay, great. Do you know how to do it? Is it a skill problem? So it's not a purpose problem. Is it a skill problem? No, I know how to do it. I know how to recruit. I know how to position financial planning. I know how to sell employee benefits. I know how to go after 401k business. Okay, great. Then number 3, why aren't you doing it? What's between the ears that's telling you you don't deserve the shot, that you don't deserve the opportunity, that we can't serve that marketplace? What's between your ears that is telling you that? Because it's not us. We're telling you you're the best. You belong here. This is your business. You're going to crush it. And we know you want to do it and you say you know how to do it, then what's between your ears that's stopping you? And I think, again, it goes down, back to relationship and the fact that, look, the opportunity and the challenge is so big. This world is not meant to attack it alone. It's not meant to attack this world or this life alone. This world is built for teams. And because it's built for teams, I think it goes back to just the simple title of, look, when we're serving and leading teams, we shouldn't crush people's dreams or vision for their life. We should encourage them. We should live in transparency with them because it will unite us and create a trusting environment where we can all achieve our maximum potential. And lastly, when we write it down, when we have that plan written down, we now have something we can come back to objectively and as like a committed, loyal, and empathetic teammate to understand why it is that they're not achieving their true potential. So when we're serving and leading teams with great vision, transparency, and a written plan, I just think that the possibility of success is far greater than even what we can imagine. Think about it. When I was a little boy, I wanted to be Batman, the middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears, like Mike Singletary, or a successful businessman. I very quickly realized that Batman was not going to be an option. Very quickly. Then number two, going through my very mediocre Division III college football career, I quickly realized going to the Bears was not an option. And so here I am, I'm still kind of chasing that, hey, maybe I could be successful in business. But my parents didn't crush those dreams. My parents didn't crush those dreams. And so how many times are the greatest lessons of our life not taught in the classroom or in the boardroom, but when we were children? And we go back to that. Nothing I said today was actually that special until right now. Everything we needed for this world, we learned as a little boy or little girl. And so I think that's just a really special opportunity for us to make sure we represent not just the state of Michigan, but our local communities in a way that we could all be really proud of it. And when we take that mindset of, hey, maybe I could add value first, man, I just think really special things are going to come up. And I've never forgotten Rick Kaminsky's offer to help me with my next office. But I'll tell you what, Rick, I might need better furniture in my home than my office, depending on how things keep going. So I really enjoyed being with you. I hope some of this was helpful.
Thank you so much, Manny. Now, we'll open up for questions a little bit, but I had a question for you.
Yep.
As you mentioned, talking through the plan and the vision, a lot of times what we do see is we build our own barriers and our own roadblocks to success. In a servant leadership style, how do you help your employees overcome these barriers without being too intrusive or being fully transparent? How do you get them to that next step?
So that's a really great question. And I don't know that we have the answer for it yet. But what I would say is it's a lot easier to avoid landmines and hand grenades when you have a consistent recurring touch point with your key people. So instead of waiting until something happens, and if that person trusts you enough to bring it up, if I have 3 morning touch points with Gina Coleman every week, and I have a daily touch point with my right hand, Alex Joint, every week, and I have a recurring 1 p.m. meeting every Wednesday with Chad Miles, it's a lot. It just seems like we step on less problems. Or it's like the consistency of communication, almost over communication, that allows us to like get at things when it's just a little insect bite before it turns into something that's out of control. So I know it's not a great answer, but I think we avoid things becoming more significant and problematic by the fact that we're more of a culture of over communicating by having consistent recurring meetings that we honor.
Makes sense.
If that's helpful.
It did. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or speak up. I'm going with another question because obviously I'm a huge Manny fan, and I do think it's funny because I do think Samantha has played a lot in your success. And I only say that because one thing that I truly genuinely love about you is every time you communicate, you bring a little bit of yourself, a little bit of your family, and I feel like you let us into your life. And I feel like that's how I automatically connected with you. And I think that's such a difficult thing for certain people to do, by showing that humility and showing that humbleness and just being open to exploring who you are with other people. How do you help promote that with your team to be comfortable in their own shoes and have that confidence?
So that's another good question. Look, I think we all subscribe to sharing a little bit about ourselves and our story at different levels. I've just found that the more I can just let people know, look, this is who I am. This is how I grew up. Like, you know, growing up in an 800 square foot house in the same room with 3 brothers, that's a unique experience. And it was perfect for us, but it was a unique experience. And that has contributed so much to my DNA as a human, as a teammate, as a steward to our firm. And so I think a lot of times, I think by just being the first one to open up, it's almost as if we kind of silently give them permission to also share back. And look, I'm the first one to make fun of myself. I put my foot in my mouth, as y'all can imagine already from just 40 minutes together. I put my foot in my mouth so much. But I had a conversation this morning with someone on my team, our head of compliance, who's a brilliant man that I trust and respect very much. And I said, Mike, you know the difference though, is that every time someone has pointed out that I'm wrong, I've come back and apologized the best I can for that moment. So I'd rather keep putting my foot in my mouth, being called out and apologizing so that people know we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for the real you. We're looking for the real you. And another thing I'll just share very quickly on that is everyone who gets hired into our firm, even though I'm not the hiring manager or even the oversee the department, I'll meet them for 10 minutes and I take them through the same 4 questions. It's Ford: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Tell me a little bit about your family. What have you been doing occupationally before today? What'd you like about it? What won't you miss? What won't you miss about that? If you're here a month from now and on Friday morning, I come in and I say, hey, you have been crushing it. Take the day off. What are you going to go do? And who's the first person you're going to call and why? Recreation. And last one is dreams. If you crush it here, and because we're in the financial business, we have to pay well. We have an obligation to pay well. We have an obligation to be charitable. We have an obligation that when we win, we have to help everybody else win, because that's what's that is the expectation for a financial firm. So I say, if you crush it in your first year, what's that one thing you've been dreaming of that you're going to do for yourself or for someone else to celebrate a great year? So family, occupation, recreation, dreams. In those 10 minutes, I know whether or not we're going to be friends. And if we can't be friends, we're not going to work together. We say it all the time. Man, I do not leave Samantha, Ava, and Atlas to come to work to be miserable. I'm just not about that. So if we're going to come to work, we're going to be friends. Not whether we're friends and we say one word a week to each other, or we're friends and we have lunch once a week. I mean, it's okay. There's all kinds of different friends, right? But we're going to be friends.
I love it. Well, actually, I feel like that kind of answered Jeff's question about, you mentioned you're really good at hiring. Will you talk more about that? I think it touched a little bit on that, but how are you identifying talent? I know, is it in the first few words that you feel like you're grasping that connection, or do you really dig deep into people?
I'm not a big, I worked a lot of years in construction at a young age. I'm not big into digging holes anymore. I try to avoid that as much as I can. So I'll tell you, I don't get really deep. But I find that if by just saying, tell me a little bit about your family, people can go deep. And what I want to know is, I want to know 2 things in that first question of family. I want to know that you love your family, no matter where you've come from. It's just critically important to me. No matter how many bad things have happened, I want to know that love and affection you have for your family has been forgiving, has been understanding, has been just some level of unflinching commitment to the people that are your family. It's just important to me. It doesn't make me right. It's just how I look at it. The number 2 thing I want is, I want to know that you can communicate. Man, if you love your family, you can't figure out how to get excited and smile and tell me that you owe your parents everything you have, or that, you know, your sister, your brother brought you through a tough time, or that your children are the reason why you don't do the dumb things you did when you were in your 20s. Like, you can't say that. I'm not sure what we're getting. So that first question, I just think is very critical, and probably where I spent the majority of our time.
So if you guys have more questions, please feel free to add to the chat. Final question, at least for me, is I struggle personally by saying, to be honest. And I've been working on it for I really have, because I actually did this several years ago, and somebody said, so are you lying the rest of the time to me? And it really did bring me a little bit more introspection on that. But I think I lead with it because it's a difficult statement that I'm going to be saying next, or I know it's going to make someone uncomfortable. how do you address that kind of uncomfortness of saying it? Or is it really just being open and honest right away?
Well, I think I was probably a little bit more when I said it earlier, and I'm glad you said that because I used to say it. And somebody said, hey, either people lie to you all the time and you're scarred, or you're about to say something that's really hard for you to say and you're uncomfortable. And right. And so I can really, really empathize and like meet you where your feet are right now in that comment. I just think, look, we can quickly tell if the energy's good or not. I'm not so direct when they actually say it. I'm just like, I hope so, or please do. Please do. One of our new associates at the firm always says it. She says it chronically, and I'm like, please do. Please be honest. And she just chuckles now because she's like, oh, I did it again. But that's just, look, that is just like the fact that I probably said about 100 times this morning. And so, Jeff, thanks for shaking sideways because I've been told stop saying And so, everyone has a different sort of like glitch, I think. And, I don't take it personally. I really do it more to just empower people to say like, look, man, you got to live in your truth. Whatever your truth is, you got to give it to me. Give me the choice or the chance to respond to it and tell you if I'm with you or not. And so I think, we learn so much from each other when we feel empowered to be really honest about things.
Yeah. Well, Manny, if there's no more questions, I just wanted to say I'm very thankful. I've gotten several text messages asking if it's okay if I can share the recording off to people because we did have a few people who couldn't make it. Is that good to send it? Perfect.
Yeah.
Diana has Diana agreed. She needs to be very candid and direct sometimes. But Manny, I just
appreciate Diana
so much. We really, really appreciate you at the Tri-Chamber of Commerce. Every time I see you, I get more empowered. I already like the amount of notes I've taken from you cracks me up because I'm now writing my plan, making sure I stick to my details. It's really inspiring. And I'm so grateful, especially to all your team at MassMutual Great Lakes, the podium, and obviously the collective, which is newer product line for you guys. But is there any final statements or anything you'd like to share with us before we go?
Yeah. Hi, Manny.
Okay.
Just fabulous job. You have just an extraordinary amount of great energy. You're so authentic. I love your stories. We got to clone you in every form of business there is because, I've been an executive coach for 27 years. And the biggest tragedy for me is people waking up in the morning and not leaping out of bed, excited about their day. Unfortunately, about 70% of people don't feel that way. But when you can put your heart and your soul and your values and your authenticity into that purpose that you clearly do, we want you to get this all over your folks and have them paid forward, both through their service of their clients, but also within their communities, within the nonprofits. We just need so much more humanity these days. And thanks for letting us know that's all within us. So great job.
Yeah, and Barry, thanks for saying that. I'd share it again. I just want to be really authentic about this. Man, I've got a stack of like millions of mistakes, right, in my life, and I think it's been these tough moments that have really, really shaped like who I think I am as I stand here today. And there's just been so much. I've been blessed that there's been so much forgiveness and desire to understand me in my moments of failure by the people around me. And I think that's why Tara mentioned Samantha so much. It's just an enormously special and blessed path that I've had because of everyone around me. And folks like you, Barry, right? I've had 2 coaches for 15 years of my life. And it's because I know I needed them. I needed the consistent relationship and like commitment to me in things that my parents, I knew I couldn't expect from my parents, not because they're wrong, but because they're just my parents and they've had their own life, right?
I have a little coaching for you, and I don't want to be presumptive here.
Please.
So I've been a member of the International Coach Federation since its inception, but there's an interesting phrase that they use. People don't need coaching, they deserve it. So if you imagine yourself as a parent, don't your kids deserve coaching? If you
100%.
see your kid going off to school, wouldn't it be wonderful if every teacher, every guidance counselor, every religious leader or whatever it would be, had a coaching skills to bring forth and bring out of people their very, very best. And that's what you do in your work and in your community efforts. So that's why we have to clone you, so that everybody has that wonderful experience of being that contribution, being that giver to those that they care about and love.
Yeah, I mean, it's a better place with all of us together. There's no doubt. So yeah,
Thank you.
super blessed and humbled to be with y'all.
Well,
Thank you.
I normally would say we don't deserve you, but Barry just told me we do. So I am very grateful to you, Manny, and we are very deserving of all the wonderful things you shared with us today.
Can I say a word to Manny?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, Manny, this is Rick. How you doing? And thanks so much for all the great compliments at the beginning of the program. I've been watching, keeping track of you for the last 3 years now since you've been here. And I really appreciated the opportunities. I did get to meet Samantha at one of the economic club meetings, and also Paul Davis. I think he's still with you, isn't he?
Yeah, so we're appointing Paul as equity partner over the Podium Group next month. It's really exciting. He's just, of any professional athlete that I've ever brought into the business, and as some of you know, my partner in Chicago is Desmond Clark, who played for the Bears. But Paul has just done such special things, and he's a son of Michigan, and so it's a really special story, and we're really excited for him.
Well, that's really great. I'm glad to hear that, and glad everything's going so well. I follow a lot of your things on LinkedIn because there seems to be excerpts from your speeches. They come up.
Chad's brilliant.
So I see them. This is the first time I've seen a whole presentation, so I find it very interesting. And when we met, I was retired. I'm still retired. And now it's a lot slower because the offices are closed. So, but I'm missing all those meetings that we used to be able to go to where there was 200 or 300 people at, and we got to meet a lot of new people, which is the kind of stuff that I like to do. So, but I appreciate everything you said, and I think you've done a really great job.
Thank you, Rick.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And guys, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. We will send the chat out. So I do know there's a few more questions that Manny will send to you specifically so you can engage and interact, and we'll share our emails with each other. But guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much. I'm going to start this day with a strong plan. I'm going to actually hit a golf course. So it'll be a great day in this world. It's for awesome. But either way, it is hitting the ground running.